If you've ever felt like you have all the right logical points in order to sell somebody, but they never actually move forward with your services, your product, or your business, there's a specific reason why, and it's not because your logic wasn't sound and it wasn't because you weren't passionate enough. It's just because you misunderstood and didn't leverage this one idea. It's just 5 steps that if you follow them, every single person that you speak to who is qualified, who is somebody who actually realistically can move forward with what you do, they will. But in order to understand it, I need to show you something first. So let's say we're looking at this model of the brain here. Really, really simple. You can tell I'm an artist. On the outside, this is kind of the protective mechanism that most people operate in about 99% of the time. If you have ever heard somebody say, get out of your head, right? This is where you're operating when you're in your head. It's called the neocortex, okay? This part is used for logic, for decision making, future pacing, all that kind of good stuff. That's where most people live. And so if you are just connecting to somebody through that, then that also includes something called the critical factor, all right? The critical factor is bad if you want to sell people. The critical factor is a little security guard at the front of the brain that says, no, this information is potentially dangerous. It could change the way I view the world, or it may be a lie or something like that, right? So the critical factor is where people just poke holes in your arguments. So if you're just speaking completely logically to somebody, you're triggering the part of the brain that also comes with the critical factor. And so what you're saying, all this logic, even if it makes sense, people will still poke holes in it. And as you know, you can have the best argument in the world and people will still poke holes on it, right? That's why like political parties, there's always both. There's people who believe you should work hard and then not work hard at all. There's people who believe that money is good and there's people that believe that money is bad. You can logic your way on both sides of the argument all day long, but that's not really what convinces people, is it? So maybe we should trigger a different part of the brain. And the way that you do it is through a story. All right, very, very simply put, a story triggers a different part of the brain. Let's look at it. Story, instead of triggering this neocortex area, a story triggers this area right here. All right, this is the deeper part of the brain where more important decisions are made, where memories are stored. This is what's called the limbic brain or the mammalian brain. So the mammalian brain gets triggered because of emotions and stories specifically. If you think like back to caveman days, when were stories told? Stories weren't told just like willy-nilly. They were told around a fire in the evening with the elders of the community and everybody huddled around. Safe, eating food, warm, in a group. So you can probably imagine all the things that get triggered inside of the human brain, especially the parts of it that have been passed down through thousands of years of training and generations. Those all get triggered when you start telling a story. So the trick is, how do you tell a story? Well, personally, I would credit this guy named Donald Miller for this. Donald Miller runs a company called StoryBrand, and they do really well with this on like the marketing side of things. I'm not a marketing coach, so I don't really deal with this stuff. I've worked with them, but I don't deal with this stuff. I deal more in like conversational, but how you can actually use this in a conversation applies also to your marketing. So I've got my little peace soundbite up here, but essentially what he teaches is this framework called PEACE, right? P-E-A-C-E. P stands for problem, E stands for empathy, A stands for, what is it? Action, I think. C stands for change, and then E stands for end result. So basically you just take somebody through this and it creates a sort of story, kind of like where maybe you've watched Star Wars before. Luke Skywalker has a problem, right? It's that the world sucks and evil is prevailing. Empathy, he meets Yoda, right? Like Yoda can empathize with it, but then he takes him into action, into training. And through that training, Luke gets better with the Force and he learns skills and learns emotional management, all that kind of good stuff, how to use the Force. And then the end result is he uses that to fight Vader and he wins and the universe is, the galaxy is saved, right? Very, very simple. So I'll give you an example that I just had my AI write off of this. So it tells you how powerful this is. You built something real, you put in hours, nobody saw you made the sacrifices, nobody clapped for, and you know in your bones that what you have is worth way more than what you're getting for it. But your best prospects keep saying that they need to think about it. Your team nods along and then does nothing, and your pitch lands in the room, but then dies before it hits the floor. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've started to wonder if the problem is you. It isn't. I know, now we're on to E, that feeling precisely. Because I personally started with nothing. Like, this knows my story here. A teacher's aide with a big idea and zero leverage. And for a long time, I believed that if I just got better at my craft, if I worked harder and I learned more, I showed up louder, the results would eventually catch up, but they didn't. Because the game I was playing, blah, 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 blah. Let me just move through all this. It's not something, it's a skill. The same way the reading is a skill, same way arithmetic is a skill, blah, 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 blah. 5 timeless backed influences. Okay. So this is like actually writing a post. I realize I used the wrong AI. So problem is, let's say the problem that I solve is people not getting the conversions that they know that they could in any scenario, whether it be a one-on-one conversation or one-to-many, whether it's a webinar, marketing, whether it be an internal team, whether it be getting investors into your business, whatever it might be, that's the problem, is like no conversions or not as good of conversions as you'd like, really more like. All right, empathy is, I understand that because there was a time where I got started in business and I couldn't close a door. I couldn't get anybody to listen to me off the get-go. I didn't know how to hook in an audience off the beginning. I didn't know how to convince somebody to completely change their behavior in a conversation. I needed like 3 or 4 of them in order to do it. So empathy, I get it. Action is like, I created the Game of Influence, which is a community to build the skill set of influence so that you don't need to use an AI, so that you don't have to script out a full webinar. You can legit just hop on stage and close, like I did at an event recently. I closed 80% of the room on my 10K program, and it was super easy. There are about 80 people there. You can do the math. That's why I created the community, so that you can just do that. And I didn't plan the webinar. I didn't plan the talk from that stage. I just got up and I did it. But because I have the skills baked in, I've practiced them for years, then I can do that. And so that to me is the ultimate kind of freedom. That's why I got into all this. And so if you would like that kind of freedom, maybe you should join the community. Change, right? Once I learned this skill, I no longer had to take 4 or 5 calls in order to close a deal. I didn't have to script out all of my stuff and have the AI write my webinar for me. I can just do things on the fly. When I meet somebody in an elevator, I no longer am fumbling over my words. I know exactly what to say, in what order, in what way, in order to get what I want every time. I can get pulled over by a cop for a speeding ticket and fucking get out of it. I can land in Costa Rica for a team retreat behind schedule and get through security without a ticket. I cut the entire immigration line because I got somebody who was a pilot to take me through the pilot's line. Like this type of stuff, that's what changed for me. Whenever we did this, my results just went up and up and up. And then last but not least, the end result is now that I can just get whatever I want in my life pretty much. Like obviously there's a lot of, be careful when I say that. I can't get whatever I want. It is an art and a science. It's not just a science. And so I have a ton of fun though, doing this every single day. And I can fairly reliably get whatever I want in my life. I got 2 free coffees yesterday, actually. So I had ordered a coffee and then I wanted a couple more. And so I influenced the barista to give me 2 more throughout the day because I was sitting there for like 3.5 hours running some group trainings, some guest sessions. And yeah, end result equals easy money, retired, got the house, got the cars. It's great. So anyway, this is the peace framework, and this is how you actually can bypass this stupid part of the brain that everybody lives in and get to the real stuff without really even having to do anything. It's just to tell a story, and the story that is most easily told is just following this framework. What's the problem? I understand. Here's what I did about it. Here's what changed. And now here's where I am because of it. Now, specifically, you don't want this to be about you all the time, right? When you're introducing yourself in like an elevator pitch, as an example, you can use this, right? You know how people go into conversations, passionate, talented, practice, but they end up not getting what they want. I understand that because blah, 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 blah. Like this is a great way to just do an elevator pitch. However, if you're using it in content for somebody else, as an example, you probably want to have them be the Luke of the story and you be the Yoda, right? They're the hero, you're the guide. And so you talk about their problem. You talk about how you get it, right? When they have that problem, but then you talk about how you created this thing in order to help them, or here's the action that they need to take, here's the change that will come from it, and here's the end result. So if you want to learn how to actually use this in everyday conversations or in your business and your marketing, etc., probably learn from Donald Miller if you want to learn this directly. But if you want to learn this in the context of everything else in order to build a skill set that you can take with you anywhere for the rest of your life to get whatever you want, just like I have and just like my students do, join the Game of Influence. The link is in my bio.